So we're looking at the keys to victory.
Mhm.
And Kyle, since you're our guest, we're going to let you go first
Ooh.
with the keys to victory for Auburn.
We looking for a certain number of these keys or just whatever comes to mind?
Whatever comes to your mind.
Well, let's talk about offense, defense, and special teams because those are the three facets of the game. Offensively, do not turn the ball over. I know that seems rudimentary. I realize that's just basic football, but that in the first half of the season for Auburn has been their issue. A lot better in the second half, still a few times too many. Some of that has been Peyton Thorne. Some of it has also been players like Jarquez Hunter, which people will never say a cross word about, which is Warren. He's playing really great this whole season, but let's not forget some of the criticism that gets lumped on Peyton Thorne. It goes all the way around. So don't turn the ball over. This is especially important when you're in Tuscaloosa or anywhere on the road. If you turn the ball over on the road, you will lose the game. Period. Said. Done. It happened several times, I believe, in the Alabama-Oklahoma game. If you do that, you give more opportunities to make it easier for the advantage that the home team already has, given if you are already the perceived underdog. Defensively, I'd hate to be boring and just say you got to shut down Jalen Milroe because we know that's not the only weapon that Alabama has. But certainly Auburn has done a decent job of containing, not completely stopping mobile quarterbacks. I would press the issue and say that Jalen's a little bit stronger than the typical runners than we have run against at quarterback for other opponents. So I'm not sure how that matchup's going to work out. But certainly, I think limiting explosive plays from Jalen and Ryan Williams and anybody else, I think really honestly, if Auburn gives up 2 explosive plays in this game, and when I say explosive, I'm thinking 50, 60 plus yards, it's going to get bad. So those have got to be limited to 1, 2, maybe a third. Special teams, we have a unique not history. Alabama, obviously, we've had great fun of making fun of kickers for Alabama for a long time. Certainly, we are taking our lumps this year on that. A lot of it is out of the control. Our but regular kicker, Allen McPherson, has some really bad health issues that have kept him off the field, tried to come back. Hometown kid, Towns Magoo, has just struggled. I'm a former kicker myself. I know you look at me, you're like, duh. You don't look like a linebacker or anything like that. So I feel for the kid. He's struggling in it. You hate it because he's a hometown kid. So a new walk-on has come in from Birmingham Southern and has done pretty decently in the last 2 games. So I would say the key special teams is when you get the opportunity to make your field goals, you've got to make them. Can't have any missed field goals. And I know I'm setting up a very specific set of parameters that are very easy to fall apart for Auburn, but I think that's the case. Auburn can only afford so many mistakes with the team that it has this year. If they don't make those certain number of mistakes, they are going to win the game because they have that ability on offense and that ability on defense. But can they get out of their own way? It's probably the biggest key if we're just going to kind of tie it all together.
Well, Johnny, what are the keys to victory for the Alabama Crimson Tide on Saturday?
Well, I'm going to start with Auburn. If I were Auburn, I would, number one, I'd just follow Oklahoma's offensive game plan. I'd, do a lot of pulling guard, pulling tackle, trapping, misdirection, stuff like that. I mean, back in the old days, we would teach, linebackers, read the offensive lineman. They'll take you to the play. And now you have, linebackers in the reading backs and the quarterback. And so that just opens up a lot of, what Oklahoma has done, what's happened to Alabama several times. And so if I were Auburn, if Alabama's going, just read, quarterback, read back and then let themselves get trapped, then I would do that. I would follow that same game plan. And but if I were Alabama, I mean, obviously it's Alabama, I don't know what they're going to do offensively. I mean, if I were Auburn defensively, it would be easier. It's easier for me to tell Auburn what to do than it is for me to tell Alabama what to do. If I'm Auburn, I'm going to do, a lot of what Oklahoma did on defense. I'm going to make Jalen Milroe beat us. Maybe he'll get a big play or two, but don't let that, maybe they'll jump up 14-0, but don't let that deter what you're doing, change what you're doing. Stick to it. I mean, make the guy throw. Make the guy throw. and stick to that rationale. I think if Alabama can come out and maybe get a big play, maybe a long drive. I mean, the first quarter of the Oklahoma game was not that bad. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that bad. Alabama forced a fumble, that kind of stuff. But then as a game, because there was not much scoring, anything, that kept Oklahoma, the fans in the game, and they kept getting more and more and more fired up. Alabama's just got to get the crowd involved, have some success early. Auburn, you want to get the crowd out of the game, which means long drives and things to that nature. So do what Oklahoma did. Let Peyton Thorne run it, and then pop a couple of passes. I mean, Coleman out there, he's like a Ryan Williams. He's going to be hard to cover, and so to me, it's just weird. It's easier to tell Auburn what to do than it is to tell, for me, it's, you got to do this, because Alabama gives you nothing. You can't go week after week after week and, they're a great passing team. Or week after week after week, Alabama's a great running team. And you can't say that about Alabama. You can't say they're great passing, great running. You don't know. It's bizarre. But one thing I will tell Alabama, I mean, your season's on the line. I don't think they'll make the playoffs with 3 losses. I don't think they should. But who knows what these brainiacs and created this model. But Alabama, I mean, it's your season. Either you want to do something special, or you just want to go home and get in the portal and go transfer, and we'll try it again next year, and I'll make my money here, and I'll go make something somewhere else, and all this other kind of crap.
And we got our recruiting class for 2025. So we've got Keelan Russell just sitting there waiting in the stands. So that's going to be cool.
I don't even pay attention to recruiting anymore. I mean, it's pointless. Why? I mean, if I'm going to develop a team, I'm going to go to the portal. I'm going to beg, transfer, blah, blah, blah. Why am I worried about an 18-year-old? I'm going to build my team with 21-year-olds. I said this at the start of the season. I'll still say it here at the end of the season. You will see a team that will win a national championship without a single freshman on the roster.
You might.
I will say it, and it'll happen, and then y'all can.
Here we go.
This guy knew what he was talking about. Screw it. You don't need a freshman.
Kyle, my friend, you got a question from our buddy Will ND, and he asked, do you think Deuce will start next in 2025?
This is the most frequently asked question I get right now. And my answer about the quarterback situation in general, and I know I'll answer it specifically, is I have no clue. They could go 50 different ways on who's going to start next year. But what I have said, and it's probably the only statement that I will stand on, is that I do not think Deuce Knight will start next year. And that has nothing to do with Deuce Knight not being up, his talent level not matching up to what the expectations are. You just don't see very many true freshmen come in and start. Most notably, Bo Nix did, and it was pretty successful. Wasn't the most successful, but it was a pretty good start. So there is some history there for that. This transfer portal, as you were talking about, Coach, just throws a monkey wrench in everything. And I think there's a segment of Auburn fans that want Deuce Knight to start, and there's a segment that want a transfer portal quarterback to come in and be the next savior, the Cam Newton effect. It wouldn't shock me if somebody who's currently on the roster, Walker White, Holden Garner, Hank Brown, starts next year. If I had to put my money on someone in that group of 3, it'd be Walker White, because I think there's a lot of leadership potential I see him. Not to say that there's not in Hank or Holden. Holden's been around for a while. I get the sense that he has kind of just accepted his role in the quarterback room as that a backup and a person like that. And I hate to say that about it, because I never want to take away anybody's potential, but I think we're kind of at that point with him. So that's kind of why I remove him. Going to Deuce, though, I guess to bring it all around, I'm kind of talking circles here. I do not think that he will start next year. That's assuming he does sign on the dotted line, and nothing's ever a given these days. But I don't think that's a cause for concern for Auburn fans or for him. I would much rather someone come and spend a year learning, growing, getting used to the college game and college speed. Because as great as your Cam Coleman's and your Ryan Williams are, and they look great in these moments, they're still learning to get up to the speed of the game. And that's why sometimes you see like a Cam Coleman who had a great start against inferior opponents and then kind of had a not so, or a quieter middle of the season, have this much better end of the season that he's had with these last 2 games that he's had, because he's getting used to the speed. He's learning. Coaches talked a lot about with Cam Coleman. I know we're getting into wide receivers now, but he's talked a lot with him about learning to do better on his intermediate routes, pass blocking, things like that, becoming a more well-rounded wide receiver and not just the go up and get the ball guy.
Well,
So go ahead.
Here's a monkey in the room that throws everything to chaos.
Yeah.
Do you think Coleman will stay around, or do you think he'll Auburn will be outbidded?
Who knows?
He'll want to play somewhere else. I mean, you can't depend on it anymore. And why would I depend on a high school freshman just out of high school quarterback when I can go out there and get me somebody else, whatever? Why would I want a 18-year-old freshman?
Yeah. And I like this comment right here. It says it builds a family keeping freshmen on the team. If it can work, and Hugh is trying to do that, he's trying to do that, maybe to his own demise. Some people have gone out and criticized Dabo Swinney for his, very vocal disinterest in going heavily into the transfer portal. Now, he's doing all right since then, but Hugh seems to be a little bit in that vein. If there's a good opportunity out there and the money's right, I guess we could have a transfer portal go back. I know it's all frustrating, and that's why I do not spend my time worrying about the decisions of 17 and 18-year-olds that much, or the transfer portal decisions. Whoever's on my roster is whoever's on my roster, and they got my support regardless. And I know that's cliche and kind of boring to say, but it's the way I've learned to live my life.
It's sad. I mean, it's sad we're to this point. We used to be able to make sense of it, and we used to be able to talk about the freshmen coming in and recruiting and all. We can't anymore.
Yep.
I mean, it's all free agency. It's all, the only thing we like is trade. Mid-season trade. Get rid of this guy. Let's bring in some. We've been talking about that on here. I mean, it's just I don't trust it. I think eventually it's going to be the demise, and nobody can predict anything anymore. There's no stability. I mean, if you want chaos, then this is what you're going to get. But, and then all of a sudden these guys are making all this money. I quit watching Major League Baseball. Well, I don't want to watch some guy swing a bat that's going to make $30 million 1 year. And then a basketball, he's going to shoot a ball or whatever, and he's going to make $50 million in a year. Well, I don't want to watch that. I don't care. I mean, they don't care. They got guaranteed money. So, now we got that model with 18-year-olds. It's the only thing I have said, to be honest with you, Kyle, is I have said this. The way to end it is back like they did us when I played, is if you're going to transfer, you got to sit out a year.
Yeah. That's
the only way or it's just going to be, free agency, trade, blah, 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 and that kind of stuff. And people are going to lose interest because it's just not fun anymore. Now, how do we know how much they're making?
It is got a lot of frustrations around it, and I certainly have my own opinions about it, which very much align with what you're saying here. Certainly, there's I think a lack of forethought in how this went about, and I think that's why there's so much frustrations there. And I think the frustrations are on both sides, the fans and the players too, as well. But how about this? It ain't working in a sustainable way right now, and it needs to be fixed, and somebody needs to take the leadership to fix it.
Well, the NCAA every year they lose more and more control, more and more credibility.
Yep.
These conferences they're going to bail from the NCAA. They're just shooting themselves in the foot every day. Conferences will just bail. And, what about the SEC? The money's there. We'll just create our own super whatever, and the national championship will just come directly out of the SEC.
Well, you're looking at that right now with the Big Ten and the SEC, kind of forming having discussions together about how, big issues in college football, you're kind of seeing a amateur NFL being formed between all the major programs, which are kind of in the SEC.
That's why, like, when people say, "Oh, Indiana's gonna get left out because they lost Ohio State," they're not. It's not gonna happen. They beat Purdue, they're in. That's simple.
Yeah.
Because of that, because it just looks like the SEC and Big Ten are going against one another, but really they're just smiling, and they got the little Wall Street suspenders and the cigars smiling and all that.
Well, let me ask both of you this: you think if Alabama wins, you think they'll make the top 12, the playoff with 3 losses? Do you think they should? Well, no, not should. Do you think they will?
I haven't looked at the rest. Shocker, Auburn fans haven't spent much time looking at the playoffs this year. I will admit that I haven't spent enough time looking at who is on the bubble, so to speak, terminology we used to only use with basketball and March Madness. I feel like you have to have a really good case to be in with 3 losses. 4, you're out. I mean, that's just you. If somebody makes it at 4, then we got to fix something. 3, you got to have the best case, meaning everybody else with 2 losses looks terrible. That's out there, or they just haven't played a schedule that's worth up to it. It wouldn't shock me if Alabama makes it with 3 losses. I'll say that much, because it's good TV. And I hate to say it to you, but that's what this is all about, money. I hate to be cynical, but I'm not taking anything away from Alabama by saying that.
That's not cynical. That's just reality.
Yeah.
Slap you in the face. Duh.
Will says it will depend on if they put Clemson or Alabama higher.
It'll be
Alabama. I don't think we should be in the top 12, because we only scored 3 points against a bad Oklahoma team. It's not like we went up against a Bud Wilkinson Oklahoma team. We went up against a team fighting for bowl eligibility and lost, didn't even score a touchdown. We had a failure to communicate, as that prison warden from Cool Hand Luke says. And
Alabama doesn't have a lot of fight when they're behind. They just don't have enough grit. They have. I mean, they just slap in the face. They don't have any grit in their gut. I don't know. I haven't seen it all year. If they're out front and running, I got lucky against Georgia. They got bailed out against Georgia.
I mean, we looked like we were recovering from eating 50 eggs in an hour. That's how bad it was.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yep. Old drag line.
Too much success can sometimes breed mediocrity.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not always the kind, but it makes it so much easier to seep in there. And then you can also do it the same way if you start looking, like we've talked about previously, looking across the state or playing the comparison game. You shoot yourself in the foot. So there's 1,000 ways to lose.
True. And in the AP poll, we're 13th. Clemson is 12th, but the real rankings that are coming on tomorrow night, I feel like it's either going to be us or we're going to be seeing Clemson in the top 12.
Who's Clemson? Clemson plays South Carolina this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a dangerous team. They better take that one seriously.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, you better take South Carolina seriously, or else you're screwed.
Georgia's got
Georgia Tech on Black Friday. It's not the first time they've played on Black Friday.
Some of these rivalries. But Lord, come on, Vandy. Come on, Pavia. One more.
Well, Austin, if you're still here, you know the quote I always say: don't ever put yourself in a position where you need somebody to win or lose for you. And unfortunately, we have put ourselves in that position.